So we came back now. We just had a little discussion about Laban's possible reasons for why he, in Genesis, had given Leah to Jacob as opposed to Rachel.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're exploring what some of it could mean and what it could be, and because we're talking about love, what is the default position of love, and we're also talking about love sometimes being like hate, and hate. The love that you think you have for someone, it turns out to be hate. It could turn out to be spite, and I think Esther was sort of saying that Laban has this sort of feeling that he wants Leah. He's interested in Leah. He wants to kind of get her married before the Rachel. It's obvious that, all right, let's say Leah's the problem child. She doesn't have the looks. She's not a hard worker in the field in terms of she's not taking care of the sheep. Rachel has got all the looks. She's got the body. She's got the figure.
She's got the brains.
She works hard. She's got the brain. She's just the perfect child. Yeah, Leah doesn't seem to be like this. Okay.
He wants to basically get her off his hands.
Yeah, so we're alluding to the fact that a parent might think that they're doing their child a favour by bringing in some sort of cultural reason. Okay, I know you want Rachel, but I had to put Leah first because she's older.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's not customary for us to let the younger marry before the older. We couldn't let that sort of thing happen. We'd have to be the other way round. I know we didn't tell you, but, you know, you're going to have 2 wives now as opposed to 1, if that's what you would like to do. So, very awful, but is that what you was asking, Simon? Is that what you was pushing forward, or is there something else you want to add to that?
Do you know what okay.
Yeah, go on.
So, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at we're using this as a reference point to talk about the thought of love, how this should work.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Jacob, and I'm looking at the situations that are around the love, like he had to love Leah, even though this thing has happened, that anybody, most people would be like, you worked 7 years? I mean, in this day and age and everything, it would be like, people would be like, boy, it's like hundreds of thousands of pounds, you know?
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, somebody cons you. It's like a con, isn't it?
Well, it was a con.
And then it's a proper con job. And then afterwards, it's like it seems natural. And this is what I think is the key point. It seems natural that there would be some issue in him. That there would be some issue in Jacob, and he'd be looking at it thinking, you con me, Leah may have been forced into it.
Yeah.
But she was in it as well.
She got on with it though. Even if she was forced in, you're right. Even if she was forced.
She was party. Laban was in charge of it. I imagine that he was in charge. He was doing it for his daughter. It's a little bit like with Jacob, with his mother getting the blessing.
Yes.
From
From Esau.
From Esau. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Isaac. And it's like the mother that sort of like pushed it. The mother pushed that, and then it's like Laban. Do you know what I mean? It's like the family is kind of. They've got this
they're scandalous
kind of thing running all the way through.
Yeah.
And there's lots of hatred. There's a lot of hatred that is in the middle, but it's like the people still need to be loving, and that's what I'm getting from it. It's like,
yes.
You've been conned, but you've been conned. I'm sorry, you've been conned,
but
you have to love your wife.
Yes.
I think that's very deep.
Yeah, I mean, Simon, this is...
Like someone's treated you really bad, but you got to forgive them.
Yes.
You got to forgive them, and you've got to, furthermore, you've got to love them.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is always, the default is always forgiveness. We always talk about forgiveness. Go, leave your gifts and go and find the person that you're not speaking to, or the person that you've got anything with, and forgive them. But I think from what we're saying, from what we're studying here, it's going deeper to say, it's forgiveness, it's love. You've got to love, you've got to forgive and love this person, these people. And I think that that's obviously very challenging.
Of course.
For some people, they're not even going there. But it's like, we see in the story, we see the character of God, we see God, and we see what He is saying. Like this is what He's expecting from you, and it's deep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you, Simon, because if you think about it, right? Hang on. Okay, you finished. I was going to say, right, that because we're looking at I want to be loved, and we're looking at what is the default position of love, and we're looking at love and hate as well in the respect of some of the things that people were doing here, they might have thought it was love, but it really wasn't love. And also, what you've rightly said is, some of the things that they experienced that wasn't love, they still had to love through that situation.
And so in today's scenario, I would talk about a young mother who finds that she's pregnant and the guy doesn't want to know, but she still has to love her child.
Yes.
Her child didn't ask to be born.
Yes.
That would be like a type of a similar scenario.
It is exactly that.
And not only that, if she does allow her child to have a relationship with the dad, she's still got to show a certain amount of respect towards the dad, because it is the father of her child. She can't just keep dissing the man. Oh, he's a no good this, he's a that. Some of it might actually be true, but you've got to love in the right way, because that's what your child is actually being shaped by. Yeah,
because what you're saying, Esther, is an absolute fact. Because let's look at the marital breakdowns, let's look at the single parent scenarios. A lot of people, they do use their children as a weapon.
Ammunition.
They do use their children as ammunition, as you just said. They do use their children to hurt and mistreat the father or mother of their child.
It's really bad. I mean, there's some women, like when they go through a breakup, whether it's marriage or whatever, they start dressing up the children in some weird fashion to show, I have no money, the dad's not looking after the children. It's bad.
And I mean, it swings in. We're saying it swings in both ways, because you do have a scenario where the mum has been left with the child, the dad is gone, and the mum still has to love the child.
And it is a struggle.
Of love is
children are a struggle with two parents, much less when you're found alone.
We've seen that people have found it very difficult to cope with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anger, a lot of upset, a lot of disregard to the child. A lot of these things happen, but we're saying to people, if you are single and you're thinking about a relationship, you're thinking about a marriage or whatever, you need to take all of these things into consideration. That if you have a child and the person doesn't love you, you still need to love your child 100%. You still need to input into your child's life 100%. Are you truly willing to do that if the relationship breaks down between you and that man or between you and that woman? As a dad, are you still going to want to support, love, raise, look after a child who's with a woman who you're no longer with, who's with another man? And if you do feel that way, shouldn't you have considered the position before you get to be with someone and have a child with them? Because if you don't feel that that's a problem, you should feel that way. You should feel like, I don't want somebody else to raise my child. I don't want someone else to raise my children. You should want to raise your children with that person and love them and spend the rest of your life with them. That's what you should be doing. That is what the default position of love should call for. So we're saying, please don't go out and have children and you haven't given all of these things to consideration. Don't get pregnant if you haven't considered this. Don't get somebody pregnant if you haven't considered this. Because you see now, in our day and age, we don't allow more than one marriage. We call that polygamy. So we've in our society here in England, we don't allow more than one marriage while another legal marriage is intact. Mm-hmm. We don't allow that. So what I have seen, Simon and Esther, is that people are actually behaving that way. Mm. They're behaving as though they can have as many husbands and wives as they want, but they're just not actually legally married. Mm. So they've got lots of children with lots of men, with lots of women. This is not what God has called for. Mm. Now come on, we have to say this. Mm. This is not what God is encouraging. Mm. Right? And the default position of... Go ahead to some. Go on.
Okay, I've got a couple of bits. So what I'm thinking about also is, because things have changed a little bit in this time. Yeah, the responsibility of the parents.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, obviously, as a parent, one of the things that is your responsibility is to, like, obviously training up your children, you know, and so like they're gonna get married and so forth, you know, giving them a good understanding of life. But one of the things that must be to teach your young people about love.
Yes.
So you're actually, like, we can say that somebody has a direct responsibility to do this for themselves. So we can say, you need to love, you need to get into your word, and you need to make sure that you're doing this, and you know, we can teach you like that. Yeah, we can teach you like that. But what I think that in many ways is missing for us is that old school traditional lineage. You know, so like you guys are in the position as parents,
yeah,
where you can be sharing this to your children,
yeah,
and sharing it to your children properly,
mm-hmm.
and you know, doing that. So now your children are in a position where they can be receiving it for themselves,
yep,
studying it themselves, reading it in the Bible, but then also they got the parent. So it's the network of the parents that are so involved that biblically used to be involved, and that now needs to really be involved. Mm. But if the parents are acting like these parents, mm-hmm. like Laban and Sarah,
Rebecca,
yeah, you know, if in 2019 people are acting the way that they were acting, then you might find that some of these cases where people are getting stabbed and shot and all sorts, because people are not being taught about love, and basically I'm making this point to say that from different angles. For me, it's like from the parent angle, from the child angle. You know what I mean? It's like people going into relationships. There's a lot of areas which love isn't going forward in the way that it's meant to be. You know,
that's right.
The way that in a family, brother and sister, the way that love is meant to be functioning at that level, how it's meant to be functioning at the marital level, and I think that in this word, in this portion that we're reading, we're actually seeing a few examples.
Yes.
So we're seeing a breakdown with the principle of love.
Yes.
We see the issue with the parents, we see the issue with the, you know what I mean? It's not like party
No.
that we're seeing issues. We're seeing issues for the women and what the women are meant to be doing, how the men are meant to be acting, how the parents are meant to be acting. We got issue like with the child, and going into his father's, going onto his father's bed and defiling it.
Yep.
You're seeing there's so many examples in there.
Yeah.
In this portion. It's quite amazing. And it's like, it's the one that's giving us lessons, right the way across within this portion. That just was just within this portion. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's very powerful. I mean, I'm going to have to go into it even in order to go into it even more.
Mm-hmm. But I think in light of the fact that we now have Jesus, and when we're not to struggle in our own strength, in some ways it should make it easier. But then in other ways, because of the current, we're having to work against the current, because the world is moving in one direction and we're actually moving against that current. But the whole point of the matter is, that's the reason why we've got to die to self, you see.
Yeah.
We've got to die to self, as in, how would we do it is not the way that God would do it. How we see the situation is not the way that God sees the situation. His ways are higher than our ways, And I think very often we do sometimes mistakenly get caught up in the emotion of something. So somebody does something, and what we try to do is psychoanalyze it. Why did they do that? Why did they say it like that? Didn't they think they'd hurt me? Didn't this, didn't that? We don't just... Jesus said that we should forgive, and I think a lot of the times we have to keep a short account with people. They did what they did. Give them the benefit of the doubt. You hurt me once, you hurt me twice. You're not going to be able to do it a third time and call it a mistake. Because there comes a point where we have to have that conversation, as uncomfortable as it may be, but we don't want to be going round and round in circles, blaming every situation and issue on ourselves, because, maybe I was the one, maybe because of me. We always try to take the blame for ourselves, but no, perhaps you are walking right, perhaps you are doing the right thing, but everybody has a responsibility. And I think the hardest thing, like I said before, is relationships, and it's the relationships normally with our family, because we didn't choose our family, we're born into a family, and the closer you are with people is the more straightforward people can be. And so sometimes when they say something quite sensitive, you might find it actually quite cutting, and there's that's the whole thing with families, is that you now have this added complexity, this added layer, of complications and emotions and thoughts, and how you perceive people, how you take them, and sometimes what you think about someone actually has an effect on how you receive them. Because if you think somebody doesn't like you and they've said something, you're going to take it in a bad way. But if you know that and trust the relationship you're in with someone, if they say something, you're going to take it on a different level. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it all depends where we are, what we're going through, what we're facing, and where we are in our walk and our prayer life with God. So there's lots of different things to consider, but the fact of the matter is that we're supposed to be learning, we're supposed to be having our minds renewed, and not just, it's not just about us. There's a bigger picture, and yes, we do go through things, and yes, as well, there may be people that we find in our lives, perhaps their tongue is just a little bit sharp when they might say things to everybody, but when it comes to us, they're just that little bit sharper. But you know what? Accept it. Maybe they're in your life for that specific purpose, to keep you on guard and to set your path straight. There's certain things that are negative that I actually take as positive in my life, because if I took it any other way, I would go down a downward spiral with them, And I think all of us just have to find where we are in that relationship, whether it's with our parents, if it's with a sibling, a younger sibling, we might be dealing with a little bit of jealousy. We might be dealing with a little bit of rivalry, trying to outdo each other, and this sort of thing with education, and oh, here they go again, going on and on about their work, and it could be anything, and it's normally the small things that end up being blown up out of proportion. So,
well, I mean, I was going to say that what you both presented there is absolutely right, and that all of these scenarios that we are picking up through the relationship between Jacob and Leah, Laban, Rebecca and Isaac, all of these things seem very representative of the way in which things happen today.
Yeah.
And that is because there isn't anything new under the sun.
Yeah, there's nothing new.
Yeah, whatever's been before is what's happening now.
Yeah.
And I know people feel that what they're going through, that they're the only ones going through it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, others before you have been through this already.
Mm-hmm.
Others have already experienced this. But what we're talking about is the default position of love. That love is the thing that you need. Love is actually the thing that bonds, that actually creates that perfectness, that actually brings about the highest standard of life.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really looking into. We're really eager to anticipate and understand how we get to the position of love.
Mm.
That even when things go wrong, even when we're tricked, deceived,
Yeah.
lied upon, pushed into slavery, forced to have children that we don't love, how do we love through all of those situations?
It's really.
How do we love through those circumstances?
Mm. Yeah, it's almost like you've got to really be dead to self. You've really got to, not let pride and your emotion override the situation. I mean, this week I was looking at John chapter 12, verse 24, 25. I'll read it from the Good News. Jesus said, "I am telling you the truth. A grain of wheat remains no more than a single grain unless it drops into the ground and dies. If it dies, then it produces many grains. Those who love their own life will lose it, and those who hate their own life in this world will keep it for eternal life." So, whilst we're talking about the default position of love, we have to think about what are the things that we do love in this life. Do we love our lives so much that we're trying to preserve it above all else? Or are we willing just to let it go? Are we willing to be of no reputation? Are we willing to actually mortify the deeds of the flesh? Are we actually willing to just let go of that emotion, let go of that pain, let go of that, that thing that keeps niggling us, in order to just let it fall into the ground? Because, you see, when we die to self, then we can produce the good fruits of what love really is.
It's true. It's true. But it's this.
Until we're squeezed, we don't know what type of fruit we're made of. We don't know what's coming out of us until we're squeezed. And when we're squeezed, it's love that needs to come out. It's peace that needs to come out. It's long-suffering that needs to come out. It's gentleness. Those are the things that need to come out. Faith needs to come out. Love. Mm. But we're not going to know what we're made of until we are squeezed.
Yeah.
Because it's always good when you're on top of the mountain. It's good when you're in church worshipping. The musicians are on it. The singers are properly in harmony. And the preaching's good. And it's all great. It's all great. It's all great. And then you step outside and somebody steps on your toe. Or somebody scrapes past your car. Or, how do you deal with those things? How do you deal with those moments?
To be honest with you, what you're both saying here and what you just said, Esther, is very, very powerful, because at the end of the day, that's what the press is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
God has a wine press, and what he squeezes out from the fruit of our lives, he wants that, doesn't he?
Yep.
Now, he doesn't want any bitter, sour poison. He's looking for love. He's looking for something that tastes good. As you said the other week, the fragrance. Yeah. He wants a sweet-smelling fragrance, not some stink odour. Mm. So we're going to put all of this and say, we're talking about love, right?
Yes, we're talking about love.
That we're saying that that love is the thing that God is looking for from our lives. And the things that you're going through that you think are torment and so forth, God is actually looking for your response in love.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've got a couple of bits just to add, Simon, right? That I wanted to reference from Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, 23, and 24. It says, look, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for he either will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Now, the reason why I'm actually mentioning this is we talked about love and love being hate and love. And here, Jesus is talking about, is the light of God in you? But imagine if the light that is in you is actually darkness. Right? And then because we're talking about love. I'm saying that love can be hate and so forth, and we think that we're loving and it really turns out to be hate. What if it's the light that's in you is darkness? Or even if it's like, for us as Christians, if your Christian life is evil, how evil is that Christian life? If what you're actually producing is evil as opposed to love. But he's saying, but if your eye is full of light, then it says your whole body, if your eye is evil, then your whole body is going to be darkness. If it's not love, then that's going to be something else in you. Right? If your eye is good, if what's in you is light and it's single, it's showing you that if it's got some purity to it, your whole body will be full of light. If evil resides, if hate is in you as opposed to love, if hate is the thing that's there as opposed to love, and you think that love is love, but it really is hate, it affects your whole life. It affects everything around you, everything about you. Everyone around you is equally going to affect you, because something that Esther was saying, and we were sort of like looking into Laban's reasonings behind why he might have pushed Leah forward, and he might have had good intentions involved, and yes, he took it to advantage to use over Jacob and so forth. He might have thought he was doing the best by his daughters, and thought that he was doing good because he's going to get a good turnover of sheep and flocks and herds, and he thought, I'm being an industrious man, and I'm a good dad.
I'll keep Jacob around me for as long as I can.
Right? And he might have thought to himself.
He loved his daughter, right?
Well, let's say he loved himself.
Maybe he wanted someone. Maybe the main thing was to get someone to work for you.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that.
I think he wanted to keep Jacob around him because Jacob.
He liked him.
He was a blessing to him, basically. He saw that God's hand was on Jacob, and he wanted to keep him around. I'll give you my daughter. You can work for her.
I mean,
for me for 7 years.
I mean, it does say that when you read the whole story. He does say to Jacob, "I know that having you around is a blessing. Things go well for me because you're here." Laban was in tune to that. I'm actually adding to all of that to say that even though Laban thought that
I was going to say, how many pastors have done that? When there's somebody in their church rising up amongst the ranks, highly anointed of God, God has a plan for that person, but then so has the pastor.
And Laban thought...
Say again?
Yeah, Laban... Sorry, go on, Esther.
I was saying, how many pastors have probably maybe made that mistake when they have somebody in their church that's coming through the ranks, who is highly anointed, they're doing really well, evangelism, they're bringing in people through the doors, people are getting saved, the baptism numbers have gone up, tithing's gone up, and then God has a plan for this person, but so has the pastor. And very often the pastor's plan might win.
Yeah, and oftentimes it does, and it's really bad. I mean, look, as you've said that, I want to add something in from Genesis 31 in regards to Laban and in regards to Rachel and everything that's happening between them. Okay, so let me just read it out to you. It's from chapter 31, and we'll look at verse 13, 14 and 15 and 16, sorry. And it says here, he said, I am the God of Bethel, whereof thou... Oh, no, wait, actually, I'm going to say something a little bit more. No, I'm not. I'm going to go from 13. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out of this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And he said, and Rachel and Leah answered, and said unto him, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. Devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said to thee, do. So basically what was happening here, Jacob had spoken to Rachel and Leah, and he told them that, if you read verse 5, it will say something like, chapter 31, if you read the chapter, you'll see...
Yeah, your father's not as friendly as he used to be towards me.
Yeah. You know, you see certain things was happening. Yeah, Laban was not happy with Jacob anymore.
And don't forget, Jacob has tricked him again with the animals.
They've tricked each other.
Yeah.
When you read it and you see this whole scenario between Jacob and Laban, Laban was saying to Jacob, what do you want as your wages?
Yeah.
You know, what do you want? And Jacob says, I'll have some sheep. And Laban says, yeah, which ones do you want? And Jacob says, I'll have these ones, the speckled and whatever. And then Laban takes all of those out and takes them and only leaves the sickest, weakest. And he said, when you read the chapters in there, you'll see that he leaves 3 days' journey between them. So Jacob will never know what sheep he has and doesn't have. And then, as Esther said, Jacob then also had a trick up his sleeve. He started to make the animals breed in a certain way so that he got the strongest and the best and everything. And the relationship really falls apart. Yeah, they're tricking each other. They're trying to get the best of each other. And then here, Jacob now says to these wives, Rachel and Leah, look, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
I'm going. And they turn around and say, even though we've been saying that Laban might have thought, Simon, that he was doing the best by his children. He might have thought he was doing the best for them, and he might have thought he was doing everything for them, but they actually perceived it as our father.
He's only helping himself.
Yeah, whatever inheritance we had, he doesn't care about us. Yeah. The inheritance that's supposed to be ours, he's taking it for himself.
Yeah.
And they say that we're like strangers to him.
We're like foreigners. He's sold us.
He's saying he's
for
sold
money.
Yeah, basically saying, you know, our dad sold us. He didn't give us away as brides.
Yeah, it's true.
He didn't love us. He didn't care for us. He basically said...
That puts a different shade on it.
Slightly, yeah.
Yes,
just slightly. I'm saying it from... This is how they feel. This is how they feel they've been treated. It doesn't mean that what we've been saying about Laban isn't true. I'm saying simply because he may have felt that that's what he was doing. He might have felt that his love, that he thought is love, isn't really love at all. It's actually hate. And according to what we read in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, 23, 24 and 25, it says that you either love the one or despise the other. So he might have been looking at himself thinking, I'm doing the best for them. I'm giving them the greatest opportunity. But what if the greatest opportunity was actually just to despise them? Was actually just to sell them? Was actually just to give them, actually using them as a form of leverage and currency to either get a husband for them who was going to work for him for the rest of his life and just get everything out of the poor man, work him to death. But what I'm saying is, sometimes our perception of what we think we're doing for somebody, we might think it's for the best reasons, but they might perceive it as actually damage. They received it. They're saying, our dad has taken our inheritance. Our dad has sold us. Our dad sees us as a stranger or foreigner. He doesn't look at us as his daughters. He looks at us as a commodity. He looks at us as some way of making money. He looks at us as some way of just making riches. He doesn't love us. But that's what we're talking about. We're saying that sometimes what we think is love, I'm saying actually turns out to be hate. But in the context of framework of it's just not loving enough. Yeah, because for us the word hate, it means something very much stronger than the way I think that Jesus and in the Bible they saw it. Just hate was just loving less. Hate was just not loving as much as you could or as you should. Whereas for us, hate is more of a vile anger. You would even kill someone that you hate type thing.
That's what Jesus said. To hate is murder.
Right. So I'm just saying that these scenarios that we're bringing up in here are they're genuine. They're real. They actually show the way that we are today. If we don't make love the default position, this is what we're left with. Yeah, you're left with a scenario like this. You're left with a situation like this, and that is not what God is looking for. Because when we look at what was taking place with Rachel, when we look at what was taking place with Leah, when we look at what happened with Bilhah and Zilpah, and what was going on with the family relationship, and what was actually being shown, and the examples that are being set, we realize that God is not pleased with all of this. We realize that God is actually saying, no, this is not what I am looking for. This is not what I'm encouraging. This is not what I'm supporting. But the reason why we've come to this particular discussion, and we're using Rachel and Leah and Zilpah and Bilhah and all of these kind of things, because they have gone before us. This is where God's the Messiah, the Christ, Jesus comes through all of these scenarios. He actually is born into this family. Yeah, he comes through this line where all this kind of commotion and all of this heartache and all of this pain is happening. And he comes through all of that, and he has to actually bring salvation to the whole world. The default position of love that Jesus showed, which is love, he could have brought all of this up and been angry and been upset and been distressed about his family lineage and where his family comes from and so forth. But he had to just get on with what God was telling him to do. Much or less us. Much or less the way in which we consider what God is putting. Like, I think last week, or the last couple of messages that we had, I think Esther was talking about Romans, where it says that we talk about, and if the present sufferings of this world are not compared to the glory that should be revealed in us,
and be compared.
Yeah, they're not worthy to be compared. And we would, when we get to be with God and we're living eternally, we were saying this, we would have taken more, Lord. I'd go through more to serve you, Jesus. And yet the things that we are going through, the things that we are experiencing, we see them as so horrible and so horrifying and so awful that we don't think of it as, bring it on, pour it on. The things I'm experiencing, the horrible circumstances that I'm faced with now, they're nothing to be compared with the glory that will be revealed in me. Right now, what we're saying is, I've had enough, Lord.
Make it stop. Get me out of
Jesus,
there.
take me away. Hurry up with the rapture. All these kind of things where we're anticipating getting away from the glory that should be revealed in us. You know, this is God bringing out his glory. Because remember what we said about Jacob, before he even got into Haran, before he even got down into Paddan Aram, God has already revealed himself to him, saying, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to make of you a great nation. All the nations of the earth will be blessed in you. So God was saying to him, I'm not going to leave you until I get it done. And Jesus had actually told us in Matthew 28, hasn't he? That I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will be with you always, even unto the end of the world. Right? But yet we have missed, we have left, we have not looked to walk in love.
We neglected it.
Yep, and we're encouraging one another to actually get up, look for that love, look for the first love that you had, respond in your marriage, in your friendships with your children, with your siblings, with your brothers, your sisters, your work colleagues, whatever. Look for the love of God.
And you know, this will make you vulnerable to attacks, to put downs, to feeling embarrassed, to feeling a little bit ashamed. You're kind of putting yourself out on a limb here, but we have to walk hand in hand with Christ on this. He doesn't expect us to just do it of our own self. We have to do it with the love of God. We have to do it for the love of God. We just have to do it intentionally, basically. We have to begin to bring the love in, begin to think about what love really is, what it means, pray into our lives, and ask God to open our eyes so that we can be practical in how we actually do love in action, not just in words. Because it's always easy to say, yes, I do love and I love you. That's the easy part. But actually demonstrating it through our deeds, that's a different situation altogether.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think that, as Simon said, there's so much in this particular one story of these individuals' lives who are serving God and believing in God and living through Christ's coming, that do we really reflect on that? Have we really looked for love in the circumstances that we currently find ourselves in? Have we really looked at, is this love, or is it hate, or is it despising, or is it just below what love should be? Yeah? Is it below what love should be? So, I mean, okay, so we're going to come to an end here on, the discussion today about, I want to be loved. And I just want to encourage anybody who's listening, please reflect on this. As long as it is, as much as it seems to go on, as much as it seems to be like, does this topic never end? There are so many examples that we have still yet to actually bring out, and that we still yet to look at, that reflect on our lives today. Because the kingdom of God is at hand. Jesus' return is inevitable. The standing before God to give an account of our deeds is near to us.
Yeah. And the Bible does say that we need to provoke one another onto good works.
Yeah.
And we've got to do that. We've got to challenge with respect.
Amen.
Simon,
do you want to say anything finally before we close on this one, and then me and you can chat afterwards, I guess, as well. But
I think I've got a lot of very good lessons.
Okay.
Out of it that can go further.
All right, we can go.
I think that the one thing that I would say is that the fact that on these routes we have the 12 tribes, and we have and then you have 12 tribes going into the promised land and going to the next level, and it's like on God, you know, they're speaking to God. They're like, you know, is this happening because of this? Have I done this? You know, but it's all through the Lord. It all works its way out, and I think that for me, that is a very important lesson that for us all, that we just make sure that in our various challenging moments and situations, to make sure that love is in there, that love is in the center, and we will be able to make our ways through challenging situations. You know, and that we'll be able to, you know, the Lord will be able to use us, you know. But without that love, you know, without that glue, you know, then boy, you know, it's like, you know, big issues. So no, it's good, very, very good.
Good. All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we're closing that, but hang on.